The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're mine. They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. Did you say Hershey? That's what it sounded like. Good, you know who I am. And you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring Into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, guys.
Tonight, we're going to talk about kind of an interesting topic, and that is what happens when you die. What do we know from actual EVP evidence and spirit box evidence? What have the spirits that we've talked to said about it? This one is going to go all over the damn place. Should be an interesting show. My idea for this was not what does religion say about what happens after you die, or what does science say about what happens after you die, or what does Joe Blow down the street say about what happens when you die. We could do all that, and we probably will get into all of those things probably tonight. Although I don't know about Joe Blow. He's kind of a dumbass. We probably won't talk about him. But my idea was we have done a lot of investigations. I have, old boy has, and I'm sure a lot of you listening have. And one thing I always do when we do an investigation is I always ask a lot of questions about what it's like where they are. If they're happy, if they're sad, if they're in pain. If they're in heaven, if they're in hell, if they see God, if they've ever met God, if they've ever met Jesus, that kind of thing. I'm always interested in that. And you get a variety of different answers. You know, I've gotten answers on the hell side from people saying that it's extremely hot where they are, that they're suffering, that it's profound sadness, that it's dark, and that they're in a lot of pain. I've gotten all of those responses before. Some of them are on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Shameless plug, numero uno. Gotten all those answers before, and you can see them for yourself. I've also gotten answers from people that have said that it's beautiful where they are, that it's paradise, that it's wonderful, that there's gold and that there's jewels and there's all this amazing stuff. I've gotten answers where people have said that they have met God and that they have met and hang out with a lot Jesus over the spirit box. And that one was a really cool one because the spirit that we were talking to that day really, really loved music. And so much so that it would play music to us over the spirit box. Now, I can't tell you what song it was because I didn't recognize it. I never heard it before. I'm not saying it's some mysterious heavenly song because I don't listen to a whole bunch of music. If I'm listening to something, it's usually a podcast or news or something like that. I don't listen to a lot of music. My wife listens to a ton of music. I'm just not that into it. But this spirit really was. They really, really, really loved music. And they would play clips of like instrumental music over the spirit box, which was kind of the coolest thing ever. And the spirit box we were using at the time, and we use quite a bit, is the Phasma box. So it's not like one of those ones that goes and like scrolls through radio stations or anything. So there's no way that it could be picking up a radio signal on this box, right? We've used this thing a lot. I mean, a hell of a lot. And probably thousands and thousands of times. And we have never picked up music on it before that, and we've never picked up music on it after that. It was only that time that it happened. And when it happened, it was in context of what we were talking about. Because I was asking about what kind of stuff they liked, what made them happy. And they were talking about music, that they loved music. And then they told me to listen. And they played a little bit. And it was really cool. So I've had them on both sides, to where people are talking about pain and suffering and darkness, and people are talking about amazing, wonderful beauty and all this stuff. Now, I'm a Christian, and I'm a Bible-believing Christian. And if we look at what the Bible says about the afterlife, it says, as far as heaven, it says that heaven is paradise. It's a wonderful place. Jesus said that he was going to prepare a mansion for us. So mansion means luxury, right? It's this beautiful, amazing place. It talks about the streets being paved with gold. It talks about the gates being made of pearl. It talks about jasper and emeralds and all these jewels that are all over the place there. That's what the Bible talks about. That is what the spirits told us when we asked them about it, what they saw, what was there. They were talking about the gold and the pearls and the jasper and the emeralds and all the jewels. They were talking about that stuff. If you look at what the Bible says about hell, it talks about suffering. It talks about burning for eternity. So if you're burning, that's intense heat. That's pain, right? Now, the one thing that's weird is the darkness, right? From a logical point, you would say, well, every single light comes from flame in one way or the other. Even like your light bulbs that you turn on, there's a filament that gets glowing red hot, or glowing white hot sometimes. And that is heat. Okay, so that is basically fire without the flame that's producing that light. So you would think if there's heat and there's fire and all that stuff and you're burning, there would be light coming off of the fire. But the Bible talks about it being a place of darkness as well, because it's the absence of God. And God is light and God is love. So the opposite of that would be hate and dark. So it kind of fits there. The problem is that we don't have super explicit information from the Bible. We have some, and I've said some of it, and it matches what the spirits have said over the spirit box. But we don't have like a narrative that is so descriptive that it can really paint a picture of every little detail. We just don't have that. But the details that we do have from the Bible, it seems to match what some of these spirits have said. Now notice I said what some of these spirits have said, because other spirits haven't mentioned anything about it. Other spirits, they don't know where they are. They don't know what's going on. They can't really describe anything to you, or they're not willing to, one or the other. But I always find it interesting to ask those questions and to see what the responses are, because you can learn a lot through that. Now, part of that is the source. What are you actually talking to? There's people that say that every spirit that you talk to is demonic, that it's a demon, that it's not a person. And then there's people that say that that's not true. I can't honestly sit here and tell you one way or the other which one of those is true, because I don't know. I know that in our experience, not every spirit that we talk to has come off as demonic to us. They never wanted anything. They never tried to hurt us in any way. They were never mean or nasty. They never tried to do anything that could cause harm to us in any way. With that being said, it doesn't mean that what we were talking to wasn't demonic. It just means that it didn't manifest that way to us at the time, that we had no idea that it was, if it was. And, that's an honest assessment of it. Sometimes when you're talking to these things, they are demonic. That's 100% true. I'm also not going to sit here and say that none of them are demonic, because I've spoken to demons before over those things. When we work a case that has a demon infestation, and there's an attachment or something like that in the family, we absolutely can talk to these things on those devices and find out what the hell's going on, and what they want and why they're doing what they're doing. It's a good tool to use. But saying that, you need to understand that just like any other tool, it's dangerous in the wrong hands. If you don't know what you're doing, then you shouldn't be messing with it. Like if you were never trained to operate a chainsaw, then it'd probably not be a good idea to go pick up a chainsaw and start swinging it around, because you're going to end up hurting yourself. Now, if you know how to use a chainsaw, it's an amazing tool. I can take a chainsaw and use it to cut anything I want. I mean, there's people that take chainsaws and they carve amazing statues out of giant chunks of wood using a chainsaw. It's spectacular to watch. Those people that do those amazing ice sculptures all the time, they use chainsaws to do that. And it's amazing to see the detail that they can carve out with a chainsaw. So in the right hands, from somebody that knows what they're doing, it's a valuable tool. Same thing here. In the right hands, if you know what you're doing with it, and you know how to protect yourself and not allow whatever doors that are open to remain open when you leave, it's a valuable tool in an investigation. Is it something that you ought to be doing just for fun? Absolutely not. Now, you may have a different opinion than me on that, and that's fine. Old boy might have a different opinion than me on that, and that's fine. But in my view, it's not a wise idea to be messing around with spirit boxes or Ouija boards or anything like that if you don't know what you're doing. And really, even if you do know what you're doing, still not the smartest thing in the world to do, unless it's absolutely necessary to do so. Because every time that you're doing that, you're opening yourself up to danger. Because what you need to realize is, in order for that communication to take place, it's not a phone call. Okay, it's not like you're picking up the phone and dialing a specific number, and you're only talking to that one person that you're trying to talk to. That's not how it works. It's more like there's a giant stadium full of people, and you're just opening a door wide open and yelling inside, "Hey, can you hear me in there? I'm trying to talk to Joe Blow down the street." Damn, I did talk about Joe Blow down the street. Well, maybe I lied to you in the beginning. I apologize for that. Maybe I was going to talk about Joe Blow. But you're trying to get a hold of that dude. But you're yelling into this giant doorway, into this stadium full of spirits. That's what it's like when you're trying to communicate. It's not just one there. You're opening a doorway where anything can come through. And often does. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to understand what you're doing. People think that this stuff is fun and games, and it's just not. I mean, I always thought it was crazy that they released a board game called Ouija. That was literally a Ouija board that you could buy. I don't know who did it, Parker Brothers, somebody like that. One of those game companies did it. And you could literally go to the store and buy it. And kids would be playing with this thing. And that's crazy to me. And people would say, well, it's not a real Ouija board. It's just a game. No, it is a real Ouija board. You can make a Ouija board out of a piece of paper. You can literally take a piece of paper and write all of the letters and the numbers and the yes and no and all that on it, just like a Ouija board has. And it is a tool that can be used to communicate. It doesn't have to be some 100-year-old thing blessed by a bald-headed witch on Tuesday. It doesn't have to be something specific. You can literally make your own on a piece of paper. Because what it is, it's not the board itself that is important. It's the intention to communicate that's important. It's your willingness to open that doorway. And in turn open a doorway in yourself to allow these things to come in and talk to you. You're making yourself vulnerable. That's why it's so dangerous. And if you don't understand that, and you don't understand how to close that doorway again, and to make sure that nothing that you were talking to is able to stay with you or follow you home and attach to your family or anything like that, then you got no business messing with it, because you're just going to end up hurt. So that's my public service announcement part here, to say to everybody, make sure that you understand that. But my point on that was, you got people on both sides of that issue that say that everything you talk to is a demon, and there's some people that say that you can talk to your grandma when she dies. I don't know what the truth is. And that's just the truth of it. And I've worked a lot of cases. I've been doing this for a long, long time, decades. And I can't give you a real answer on it. I know that some of the things that I've talked to have information that only the person that I was trying to talk to had. But that being said, the Bible tells us that demons have knowledge that they have no business having. They have forbidden knowledge. So it's entirely possible that you're still talking to a demon, and it just knows the stuff that you're asking. It has that knowledge, even though it has no earthly way of knowing it. It could be that that's still a demon that you're talking to. And that's one of the things that makes it so dangerous, is that you just really don't know. Now, there'll be people that say they do. You know, you have a lot of these psychic medium type people that will say, oh, yeah, I know exactly what I'm talking to. I know exactly. They don't. They know whatever the hell they're talking to said they were, but they don't know the truth of it. They don't know if that's real or not. They have no way to know that. Especially because the overwhelming majority of them people are full of shit in the first place. You know, and that's just the truth. I'm not saying that there are no psychics. I'm not saying that psychics don't exist, that it's all bullshit. But what I am saying is 99% of it is bullshit. I believe that there probably are people that have psychic powers, but it's a very, very small amount of people. I don't think that it is anywhere near what it's portrayed to be. And I think the overwhelming majority of these people that are selling readings and doing all this bullshit, they're just hucksters, man. They're just ripping people off. They're just taking people's money, desperate people that want answers to things, and they're just feeding them a line of bullshit and taking their money. And that's the truth of it, you know. And you can disagree with me if you want to. That's fine. But the problem is, like, if they were actual psychics, then they wouldn't be so surprised all the time, would they? About all kinds of stuff that happens. You know, I've seen so many of these people online, on like Facebook and places like that, who claim to be these psychic mediums who will charge you all this money for readings and shit like that. And then when a major event happens, they had no idea that it was going to happen the way it happened. I mean, take this election we just had, right? And I'm not getting deep into politics here. This is just an example so you understand. There's several of these psychic mediums who were talking mad shit all before the election about who was going to win it. That they knew that this person was going to win and all this shit, right? And they say all this stuff, and they keep parroting and repeating the same nonsense that you hear the news saying that's been proven wrong over and over and over again, right? Like, you could literally show them the evidence. Here it is. Look. It's that obvious that what the news is saying is bullshit, right? But they'll parrot that bullshit as if it's the truth. And then when the election doesn't go the way they think it's going to go, now they're online ranting and raving about it, just mattering a damn hornet and freaking out and crying and just acting a fool. And it's like, wait a minute, if you're such a powerful psychic that you can charge people $50, $60, $70, whatever the hell they charge for a reading, and you're supposed to be able to answer all these questions because you have all these spirit guides that are going to help you and all this bullshit, right? If you're such a psychic, how come you didn't see any of this shit coming? How come you're online parroting the same lies that have already been disproven dozens and dozens and dozens of times? If you're such a damn psychic, how come you don't know that's bullshit? I know that's bullshit. I ain't no psychic. I'm just smart enough to look it up and see that it's a lie. How come you don't know it's a lie? Well, your spirit guide didn't tell you? Is that your answer? It's bullshit. The majority of these people are full of it. You know, and you shouldn't be paying people to get readings and all that nonsense anyway. You know, it's not something that you ought to be doing, because either you're getting ripped off, or if you're not getting ripped off and they can tell you your future, if that's real, right? That means that your future is predetermined and there ain't shit you can do about it anyway. So in that case, you just wasted your money. You might have got a preview of what's to come, but if you can't change it, what's the point? So either way, you got ripped off. You lost your money. And that's what you need to realize is when money is involved, when there is a profit to be made, people are going to bullshit you all the time to make that dollar. And these people have figured out how to use the desperation in people to make a buck by giving them information that they should have no way to know. Well, it's not difficult. I mean, let's talk about old Joe Blow again. Let's do that again. If old Joe Blow down the street come to me and said, hey, man, I heard you do psychic readings, right? And if I wanted to be like one of these people to rip people off, he said, I heard you do psychic readings. You got any availability? Can you schedule me something? I'll say, yeah, man, I got something next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Hit me up on Messenger and we'll do a call. So then I got until next Wednesday at 7 o'clock to learn everything I can about this fella. So I simply go to his Facebook page and scroll his timeline, his Instagram page, all that shit, all of his social media, and just scroll it. You'd be surprised how much you can learn about a person just by scrolling their social media. Because people put everything up. They put pictures of their dinner. You know, their grandma dies. They put that up. Pictures of them in the casket most times. So literally less than an hour of research on somebody's social media, I know all of their major life events that have happened. So then they get on the call and they, you know, I know that their grandma just died like 3 or 4 months ago or whatever. Then I can say, I'm getting a message from somebody who says they're your grandmother. And maybe their grandmother's name was Irene, right? Because they said it on the post, her name was Irene. I'm getting something with a letter I. It's a grandmother or a mother, something like that, a grandmother, letter I. Oh, my grandmother's name started with I. Yeah, Irene. Is that what it is? Oh my God, how did you know that? That's all it is. It's bullshit. They're just walking them down a path, man. And just taking their damn money. You know, that's something I shouldn't even really be talking about on this show, because it's like an exit, right? I was going down the road and I took an exit. But it's something that drives me crazy to watch people throw their money away on nonsense. You know, because the majority of it is nonsense. But as far as what happens after you die, well, one thing we know that doesn't happen after you die is nothing. Right? That's science's view on it. That's what the atheist would say is, well, once you die, that's it. There's nothing more. Well, we know that's not true. Because if that was true, who the hell are we talking to? Now, you might be in the demon camp. You might say, well, you're talking to demons. You're not talking to people. Okay, but if I'm talking to demons, that means there's something after this, right? There's an afterlife. There's some kind of supernatural element going on if I'm talking to demons. So where do demons come from? Well, the Bible talks about in Genesis 6, demons are the disembodied spirit of the giants. Now, you can go watch my show, What Are Demons, Where They Come From, on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Shameless plug number 2. Dos. Swai. Several languages. Doesn't matter. Go watch that show. Whole hour, hour and a half, whatever the hell we did on it. In depth, going through scripture, all the explanation of it. You can learn everything there. Too much to talk about now. But we know that from Genesis 6, we know that demons are the disembodied spirits of giants. Okay? So that is an afterlife. Giant was born. Giant was alive. Giant died. Giant spirit is now a demon. So that is proof of an afterlife. So we know that it's not nothing. Because whether we're talking to people on these things or whether we're talking to demons on these things, we're talking to something. It's not just bullshit. It's not just some random word that's popping up. These are answers to questions, like direct answers, conversations that are being had. The odds against that being some random thing is astronomical. So we are talking to something with some kind of intelligence, a conscience of some sort, right? A consciousness. There's something there that we're talking to. So if there's something there we're talking to, that means life after death is real, which means science is not right on it. Now, granted, science doesn't necessarily say that there's nothing after life. They just say they don't know. It's the atheist who says that there's nothing. The scientist, or a real scientist, would tell you, we don't have any idea. One interesting thing is we know exactly the weight of the soul. They did a study where the body, before it dies, weighs more than the body after it dies. Very small difference in weight. I don't remember exactly what the number is off the top of my head, but you can go look that up if you want. Not important, the actual number. But what they found was that there's a difference in the weight once you die. A tiny, tiny, tiny difference. And they theorized that that is the weight of the soul leaving the body. Okay? So if science is talking about souls leaving the body, that should tell you if you have a soul, that's not something physical. That's something spiritual. Right? What are you? You could say, well, this is me. No, that's your body. What is you that's thinking and talking, formulating ideas? What part of you does that? You could say it's your brain, but your brain's nothing more than meat with electricity flying all over. You take the brain and separate it, it ain't going to think nothing. Once you die and you leave, the brain is nothing but rotting meat. So what is it that you actually are? Your consciousness, your personality, your thoughts, your ideas, what are you? Well, that would be your soul. That's what science thinks. That's what religion thinks. That's what pretty much everybody thinks. Science calls it your consciousness, your mind. And they link that to the brain because that's where thought supposedly happens. I say supposedly because we don't really know. I mean, science doesn't know a hell of a lot about the brain. They know that when you think about certain things, certain parts of your brain light up. So they make that correlation. And it's a good educated guess. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying we don't have definitive proof. We don't know for sure that the brain is even where thoughts originate. Probably is, but we don't know. But what is it that you are? Because there's something, what I'm getting at here is there's something separate from the biological that makes you. Okay? Because after you are gone, the biological is still here. But it's not thinking anymore. It's not living anymore. It's dead. but it's still here. But you're not anymore. To help clarify this a little bit, understand that there are things that exist that you cannot see, you cannot touch, you can't smell them, you can't taste them. None of your senses can actually perceive these things, but they absolutely exist. One great example of that is love. Everybody would agree that love exists, right? Think about your children. Think about your family. Think about your wife or your husband if you're a woman. There's no doubt that in that group somewhere is somebody that you love. Now, we all agree love is 100% real. Love will make you do things that are against your own interest. Love will even make you die for somebody. You will give your life for somebody you love to save theirs. Now, if we were just biological with no soul, if that didn't even exist, and we were just animals that evolved, right? Basically monkeys that evolved into, I say monkeys, it's apes, but you understand what I'm saying. A lot of people say when I say monkey, we didn't evolve from a monkey, we evolved from an ape. You know what the hell I'm saying. If we were apes that evolved into the form we're in now, and we didn't have a consciousness, we didn't have a soul, love wouldn't exist. We couldn't give our life to save somebody else, because that goes against our biological imperative to survive and procreate. That's the whole point of being alive, is to stay alive and to make more of you, to pass on your genetic code, carry on your lineage. So there's no way, if we're just a biological creature, that it makes any sense in the world to end our life on purpose to save somebody else. That's crazy. We would never do that. But when you introduce love into the mix, that makes you care about that person more than you care about yourself. So there's no doubt that it does exist. But you can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it. But it's real and it exists. So it is supernatural, right? Supernatural just means outside of the realm of the natural. It is something outside of the biological being. It is a spiritual thing, an emotion. Hate is the same way. Fear, envy, all of these things exist. They're real. Everybody agrees. There's nobody, well, I don't want to say nobody on the planet who would say that they don't exist, because there's always that one. Or really, there's always a few that are just absolutely crazy, that'll just say that most outlandish stuff. But the overwhelming majority of rational people would agree that all of those things exist. But how can they exist if you can't perceive them with any of your senses? If you can't perceive them with any of your senses, how do you even know they're real? How do you know they exist? You just know. You know because you can feel them, but you can't physically feel them. But you can see their footprint. Now that sounds cryptic and crazy, doesn't it? Let me explain that to you. Do you remember when you first fell in love? You'd never felt nothing like it before. It was amazing. You saw this person, and just looking at him, man, your heart started beating faster. You got butterflies, they call them, in your stomach. You got a little nauseous, right? Both of those things are physical expressions of a supernatural thing, feeling. They are making the biological react. That is another proof that they are real, tangible things. Not just some creation of our mind. They exist outside of our mind because they are affecting our body. Look at stress. Stress can cause cancer. It can cause heart disease. It can cause obesity, all kinds of physical manifestations of emotional distress. That is another proof that that spiritual thing is a real, tangible thing that has real world biological effects. So if the spirit exists inside, the thing that's feeling the love, because remember, when you feel something, when you feel an emotion, there's no doubt that you're feeling it, right? You feel fear, you feel love, you feel hate. All of those things have expressions in the body, right? Your muscles tense up when you're mad. You start sweating when you're scared. The hair stands up on your arm and the back of your neck. You get nauseous, you start to shiver, you get cold. Those are all physical manifestations of that emotion. So they correlate. They have real world effects. So they're real things. Everybody would agree that you feel those things. But you don't feel them the same way that you feel a needle being stuck in your arm. You feel that too. But you feel it different. You feel that physically. And even though the spiritual has physical manifestations in the body, when you're feeling that, it's outside of the body. Does that make sense? Like when you get excited about something and you get all giddy and you get that woo feeling. Yes, there's physical manifestations in your body that correlate with that spiritual feeling, but the feeling itself that you're feeling is separate. It's not biological. It's spiritual. That happiness, that joy, or that fear, that dread, all that stuff, when you're feeling an emotion, it's different than when you're feeling a physical thing. That's another proof that they're separate things and they exist and they're real. That they're not just figments of your imagination. Now you might say, okay, but why the hell are you telling me all this? It doesn't make any sense. Why are we going down this road? Because I'm trying to establish the difference between the physical and the spiritual. That both exist in one form. Yes, you are your body right now. But you are also a spiritual being inside your body right now. And when you die, your body is still here. But you're not anymore. You've left. You still exist. You're just not in the body anymore. But you're no less real. You're still there. Or you're somewhere. But you're not there in the body. But you still exist. Religion tells us that. Science tells us that. Remember, in physics, they tell you that energy can never die. It only changes forms. Now, remember earlier when I was talking about the brain, what did I say? I said that your brain is a hunk of meat with electricity flowing through it. What is electricity? Energy. Energy can never die. That's a rule of physics. Energy can never die. It just changes forms. So when you die, the energy, which is your spirit, simply leaves this form. And it exists outside of the biological, but it still exists. That's why when you're talking to these things on the spirit box, a lot of times if you got a flashlight or your phone or something like that with you, they'll drain the battery of those things. And any of you who've done any kind of investigating will tell me that that's true. It's happened to us so many times I can't even count. We were doing this one investigation, and I even talk about it on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's 3. I even talk about it on there, that we're doing the investigation and the damn thing keeps killing my camera. I brought a whole bag of extra batteries. And I kept having to pull the battery out, put a new battery in, and start filming again. I'd get 5-10 minutes out of it, and that's it. Now, one thing about me, before I go do an investigation, I spend the entire day before I go that night charging every battery I have. So they're all 100% when I leave to go do the investigation. And I always have 5 or 6 at least with me. Sometimes way more, depending on how long I'm going to be. Because I want to make sure I have enough batteries to properly film and to capture everything, because otherwise, what the hell's the point, right? So I make sure that all that stuff's fully charged. And the batteries aren't faulty. There's no way every single one of those batteries is faulty. So what's draining them? What's taking the energy? How do I put brand new batteries in my flashlight, turn it on, and within a minute, it barely lights up anymore? What's draining that energy? Well, the theory is that it takes a lot of energy to communicate, to manifest audibly to us so that we can hear you. It takes even more energy to manifest visually so that we can see you, right? So they need to get that energy from somewhere. So they're draining the batteries because that's an easy source of energy. Remember, energy doesn't die, it just changes forms. That's important. Okay? Earlier we were talking about it was important for the never dying part. Now it's important for the changing forms part. Because if energy changes forms, that means all energy can change forms. Which means they can take the energy from those batteries and transform that energy into whatever the hell kind of energy they need to be able to manifest, either audibly or visually, so that we can perceive them and have a conversation. So that's more proof of life after death. So whether it's science or it's religion or whatever you want to call anything, it all lines up together to say that when we die, we don't fully die. Our bodies will one day die. If we are perfect, if we take the best care of our body that we can, if we are in perfect health, have no genetic disorders at all, eat a perfect diet, exercise perfectly, do everything exactly right, we're still going to die. The Bible says that our days are numbered to 120 years. That's about when we die, if we're perfect. And it's funny because science just confirmed that. Science was doing studies on the length of telomeres in the cells. And by that length, they determined that the optimum age of a human is 120 years. Like that's where we're designed by our DNA, our genetic code. That's how we're designed, is to live 120 years. The problem is we screw it up because we smoke, we drink, we eat a bunch of crap that ain't good for us, and we end up dead way earlier because we screw up our bodies. But we're supposed to last 120 years, according to the Bible and according to science. That's how long we're supposed to be able to last, based on the length of the telomeres in the mitochondria in the cell. I could explain that further, but really no point. You get the idea of it. So they both agree, which is another interesting thing, isn't it? But my point was that we never die, that we live on for eternity, just in a different form. So the question of what happens when you die, is there an afterlife, would be yes, there absolutely is an afterlife. When you die, your soul will leave your body and it will go somewhere. That's the question, though. Where? Where is your soul going to go? Now, the Bible tells you you're either going to heaven or hell, depending on if you're saved or not. Science really doesn't know. They don't know where you go or what happens. They just know that you leave the body because they can measure it. They can measure a difference in weight to see that, okay, there's difference here. And the theory is that that's your soul leaving. That matches up with religion. That matches up with what the Bible says. But they don't really know where the hell you go. They have no real thoughts on it. The only thing I've ever heard science say is that maybe your energy just goes back out into the universe and merges with all the other energy everywhere. I don't buy that. The reason I don't buy that is because if that's true, how can we talk to you? Right? If your energy leaves your body, goes back out into the universe, and eventually dissipates, not disappears, but dissipates from a mass of energy that's you over time, so you kind of mix in with everything else. Like you're stirring in water and flour to make dough, right? You were flour, but now you're dough. You're mixed in with all the other flour to make one other thing. But I don't buy that because, like I said, how can we talk to you if that's the case? You know, and deep inside you, you know that's not real. You know, there's a code. And I'm not just talking about your DNA code. I'm talking about there's a code of ethics, of honor, of morality that is hardwired into your being, into who you are from very early. You know, when you're a small toddler running around, when you do something wrong, you know you've done wrong. And I can tell you that that's true because a little kid will do something, even like a little baby kid that's just starting to walk around and do stuff, who can't even really talk yet. So they don't understand words. They don't understand ideas yet, really. But even they know if they do something they're not supposed to do, they'll look up at you like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. And you may have never yelled at them for it before. You know, they've never been punished for that. They have no idea that that's wrong. You've never sat down and explained it to them. And even if you did, they wouldn't understand you because they don't know words. But they look at you like, oh, I screwed up, didn't I? Every one of you has that inside of you, that what we used to call the conscience, that you do something wrong and you're like, I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. Everybody's felt that. Everybody feels that every day, probably. You know, it's a very human thing, is that we screw up and then we feel bad about it. Why do we all know that instinctively? If there's nothing other than the biological, it doesn't make any sense that we would know that. That we just automatically know, oh, I screwed up, I shouldn't have done that. Look at the animal kingdom. Some animals are born, and as soon as they come out, they get up and run around. And they just know what to do. I mean, there's animals that the mother and the father never even stick around. Some of these things, like snakes and stuff like that, they come from eggs. So when they hatch, they don't have a mother or father to teach them anything. But they just know what they're supposed to do. They know what their purpose is. And they go and they serve that purpose and they fulfill that purpose. Now, science has theorized that that's all in your genetics. That it's encoded in your DNA, that those survival things, so that you know how to do them. But I don't think that's true, because your DNA is a set of instructions on how to build you. It's not instructions to you on how to survive things. Because if that was the case, then all of the knowledge that mankind has accrued over its existence would be born into every generation. So you'd come out of your mama knowing everything that everybody else learned before, or at least everything people in your family learned before. But that's just not what happens. You got to be taught everything. So I don't think that it could be encoded in your DNA how to do those things. So how do they just know? Well, they just know, I think, because that's their purpose. That's what they're supposed to do. God put them here to do that thing, so they know how to do that thing. They don't know how to do a bunch of other things, but they know how to do that thing that they're supposed to do. And it's interesting when you look at any animal, they have a specific thing they do. And that thing helps this species and this species and this species and this species to be able to do their thing. I mean, look at a cow. A cow's purpose is to eat grass. That's what they're made for. In the wild, when a cow is born, it comes out and it drinks milk for a while from its mama. But then it starts eating grass. That's what they're meant to do. Their stomachs are designed. They have like a multi-chambered stomach in order to ferment the grass inside to get the nutrition out of it. It's very fascinating. I'm sure you don't want to hear about cow stomachs. But my point is, that's what they're designed for, is to be nature's lawnmower, right? So that the grass doesn't grow super, super tall and nobody can see anything and get through, right? So they're designed to keep all that shit mowed down. So that's what they do. Now, all they do is eat all day long. I raised cows. That's all they do. They walk around and eat, and they drink. They eat, and they drink, and they poop. That's all they do. Now, the poop is very, very good, because the poop falls, and you got a bunch of other species that live off that. Both insect life and microbial life. That poop ends up composting down into soil and fertilizer that can be used to grow crops. But if you don't do anything with it, if you just leave it where it fell, then it will start to compost down and degrade and decompose and turn into soil. Then all of a sudden what you got is stuff growing out of that cow patty. That's where magic mushrooms come from, for those that don't know. Is they come from cow patties. Is you can go and actually find them in them and pick them. So that one animal supports dozens of species. Just in what it does. It's designed to do that. So it automatically knows what it's supposed to do. And it goes and it fulfills its purpose. It doesn't have the same level of intelligence we have. But to say that it has no intelligence is not a true statement either. Because cows feel fear. They feel happiness. Trust me, I raised them. When you come walking up to the gate and they see you, if you are their owner and you're good to them cows, if you treat them good, right? When they see you come walking up, they get excited and they come running from all the way across the field. They'll come running over just to say hi to you and just to hang out with you, which is kind of a cool thing. So they have some sort of consciousness. They have intelligence to where they can recognize you and say, "Hey, that's James. He's a good dude." In the wintertime when it's cold as shit out here, he brings us hay and grain and stuff. He's pretty awesome. I like that guy. On the same hand, if I was a prick that beat him all the time, hit him with sticks and stuff, if they saw me coming, they'd run the other way. Because they'd say, "Oh man, there's James. He's an asshole. Dude hit me with a stick. I don't like that dude. I'm getting out of here." Right? So they're not just dumb animals. So even in the animal kingdom, you see that there is consciousness. There is some sort of spirit there. So anyway, I've kind of gone off track again, but this is just a long-winded way of saying when you die, it's not the end. That there is a spirit that lives on. You live on in spirit form. And then where you go is where you go. It depends on what you believe of where you're going to end up. There's the truth, and then there's what everybody thinks. And I'm not going to tell you what the truth is. I'll tell you what I think the truth is. I think the truth is heaven and hell. I think the Bible is true. You may not believe that. But regardless of whether you believe that or not, and regardless of what I believe, there is an objective truth. You do go somewhere. And you will find out one day where the hell that is. Point blank. But one thing is for certain, and I think we can all agree as thinking rational human beings, that it's not nothing, right? When you die, it's not just that you're dead, that there's nothing. That's not the truth. None of the evidence points to that. All the evidence points the other way. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy, and I want to get his opinion on all this. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm not going to get into cow stomachs, but that that one a little odd, but hey, it is what it is. The show. Me doing paranormal for the last 10, 11 years. I have my opinions. Like he said, not everybody thinks everything's evil right off the bat. That's let's get that straight. It's not true. If you believe that, that's fine. I get it. Whatever. The first thing is always demons. It's always something bad. And what I've experienced in 11 to 12, and actually before this, even before I was an investigator, I've experienced things. I've had stuff that's never bothered me. If it was so malevolent and evil, it would bother me messing with you all the time. And the crazy thing, I'm going to tell you this. Even if it is a demon, sometimes they don't do what people think. And I'll explain that in a couple minutes first. Most of the things I've dealt with is either spirits or it's probably demons. I've done mess with shadow people. I've done mess with vengeful spirits, evil places, fingerprinting. You know what that guys means, where a lot of evil stuff has happened. Bad things have happened, and just imprints there, and it just has this evil presence to it. Just so much negativity. I believe that. I've been to places like that, and it's not good. I believe that people get stuck. If you guys want to know what that means, I believe that they die and they just keep living over the same thing. And they're stuck here. And think about it. What'd be worse than hell? Being alone. Not being able to see anybody. No one talking to you for eternity. You're just stuck. That's worse than being in hell, I think. Not existing. You exist, but you don't. There's nothing around you. It's just loneliness. Being a spirit would probably be very lonely. No wonder, and then some of them maybe that what happens is, and this is a theory I have, is they get stuck and they're just violent. They're just still violent like they were in real life. And we've done stuff with that too. Maybe this is just what happens. Like, there's just a player of a world that people go to, good or bad, and that's just what happens. And they just walk to something else comes along, or like you said, a heaven or hell or whatever you believe in. You're in purgatory. That's sorry, I finally got the word right. And maybe that's what that is. Or maybe that when you die, you get stuck in a reality of the same thing over and over. Kind of like the groundhog effect, you know, like you relive the day, the same day over and over forever. And maybe you just don't know you're dead, and you're dead and just walking around like the same thing you would do at a house. Like say that me and James are alive right now. I'll explain it to you. And the spirit's a lot dead, and but it's still stuck in that memory. You know what I mean? Like it's doing the same thing it would do like being alive. And then we're just seeing what they're doing. And then we contacted them, and they found out a way to talk to us. Maybe they're just stuck in the same reality. Like they're in their room just doing the same thing, and then they realize they're dead. And imagine that if you're just stuck in that reality. Or, and that's just a theory. I'm not saying I 100% believe that. I'm just saying those are theories that could be a possibility. Or it could be just another dimension, and these things know what they're doing, and they're just playing with us. I mean, we really don't know what they are, really, you know. EVPs and electronic voice phenomenon. We don't really know what it is. It could be somebody from another dimension that's just playing with us, bro. They could pretend they're dead, and they could be tender demons, and they could just be screwing with us because we can't do anything about it. They're just powerful. Maybe it's magical. You never know. I'm throwing out ideas. I don't really believe that. I'm just saying there could be other ideas. I'm just giving other thoughts and other theories that we can work around here. I believe there's something, because I'm not sitting there talking to myself when I do a spirit box. There's something going on. Isn't, you know, the radio, and then they start talking. It's not being made up. It's really happening. They really do touch stuff. There's something going on. Now, maybe whatever you believe, you go, and that's what you deal with. Maybe your belief comes to, like, whatever you believe in, that's what you're going to end up seeing, like hell or Hades or whatever. There's other religions that have different beliefs. They don't believe it. Maybe you reincarnated as something. I don't know that, though. But then there's arguments, because remember, we've done shows that kids have remembered stuff that they did in another life, and it's the truth. And that's another thing that we got to think of too, because we've done shows about that. We've done shows about people, little kid, and people who knew exactly to the T who they were in another life, and the family members didn't even know who the hell these people were. They're talking about, and come to find out they were real people. And this was kids. Like, they wouldn't know who these people are. That is what throws me off on everything, because I believe that too. I believe that I've lived other lives. I know I have. I believe this isn't the first time I've ever messed with the paranormal. I've told him before, I think we're reincarnations of what was those brothers called? Forget them. The Winchester brothers. Yeah, that's right. I think we were...
You talking about the Brothers Grimm?
Yes. The brothers Grimm. What did they call the Winchester brothers or something like that? Or what was it?
No, the Winchesters are from Supernatural.
Okay. Well, like the Brothers Grimm, they were supposedly real. It wasn't just a story. You know, it was off of stories. I believe that we were from that time. I believe that me and James have lived in other lives, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't such thing as God either. It doesn't mean there's no such thing as the devil. It just means that maybe you keep going back and forth till you get it fucking right. Maybe that's what really would make more sense, because say you were an evil person, then you're going to turn it, you're going to get punished. That's kind of like, you know, what Buddhists believe you like turn into a fly, but I don't believe that. I believe maybe that you get the worse your life's going to be, like in the next life you have. Everything you did to people, maybe your life's going to be horrible. And that's why bad things happen to people. And I'm not justifying that, like I believe that, but I'm just giving an idea that would kind of make sense, because say that you were a murderer and you died and you came back and you became the victim and somebody did the same thing to you. It would be pretty much karma working itself. You continuously keep living it till you get to it right. I'm just giving a theory out there, or you just get stuck doing the same thing over and over for the rest of the eternity. When we die, there's just nothing. We're just ghost. No explanation to it. That's what happens. And maybe these demons are not even really demons. Maybe they're the ones that there's just evil things. It's just there. They've always been there, and that's just how it goes. Like James talked about the Nephilim, they were a mixture of the fallen and the angel and the women of men, demons and the women of men, but not all those demons. Those are, and see, that's what people get when they say the devil and some of these other angels. They're fallen angels. They're not demons. The devil is not a demon. He's a fallen angel. He's pretty much a god, and not like God, but he is. If you look at it, he's immortal. He's not going to die. He's not like me and you, James. He's not like any of us anything we've ever seen. The devil's not red. He was the most beautiful angel in heaven. He wasn't. That's what people get this thing that he has horns and all that. He doesn't. The problem with him is he just pride. He thought he was better than everything, even God. And God didn't like that. But he was an actual angel that fell. That's what people get mistaken. A lot of these, they're not demons. They turned into something else, but they are fallen angels. Then they have demons, like he was saying. But I think that there's another theory I have is when you go to hell, that you just turn into a demon yourself. And the more and more they stack up, just like when you go to heaven, you turn into an angel. I believe, not like what you see like Michael and them, but you turn into something like that you're on that. But they're just building up for a war that's coming, and that's, people believe that. I don't know if I 100% believe that, but I have my opinions. I believe there's something. I mean, like I said, I talk to things, I've dealt with things, but I've got rid of things without different beliefs. I haven't had to call James to help me out. James hasn't had to call me to help him out. So what I come to a theory is it's a balance thing. I think things like just balance out. I think that's why it's so weird me and him get along is if you look at it, he goes one way and I go on the other, but it's still balanced. If you guys get what I'm saying, like, and that's what I think ghosts and demons and stuff like that is there's a balance, but they do things to people because some of them just don't care. They think they can get away with it and they're not supposed to be. And then we're supposed to help these people, but sometimes God lets it happen. Like me and James have talked about this. Like, remember Emily Rose, that it was God that was doing that. It wasn't the devil. And they couldn't do anything about it. Sometimes God, there's stuff that he wants to happen and there's nothing you do, if you believe that. I believe there's a balance to everything. I believe that good and evil are meant to be. There's nothing you could do about it. It's always been there. It's always going to be. But I think the best weapon against evil is evil. And I think the best weapon against good is good. Actually, good and evil kind of balance each other out. It's kind of weird if you think about it. And I don't know, I'm getting off of that one. But we were talking about good and evil a little bit, But if you look at it, most people who don't like each other are pretty similar, but they're different, but they have the same mentality. And then, like, most people you think wouldn't get along, like, not Aleister Crowley, like Anton LaVey. He didn't believe it. He was the maker of the Satanic Church, but his best friend was a preacher. That it was weird, like, and they would get in arguments and stuff, but they hanged out. He was even there when he died. That's why I said it. It's just weird. Some people are. I think it's just a balance thing. I think that's what I believe. I believe in a balance, and I believe what we're dealing with is different balances with when people die. And I think that people get stuck here. They get murdered by somebody like James is, and that's another thing. James, you helped a woman and a girl that were raped by a killer that was dead, and you finally got rid of him, and they let them have peace. So that wouldn't make any sense because they didn't do anything. They wouldn't be stuck here. That's why it's always like, what the hell is it really? Like, it's you think you know the answer, and you really don't. We'll never really know, even to where I guess when we're dead we'll know. I don't think we'll 100% figure out what that means. Maybe it's something we just don't know. We don't know 100. I'm not going to say I know 100%. It every time I think I have the answer, something else comes out. And it's something different than I never dealt with before. Like that one time, remember I was doing an investigation, and the last couple ones I always hear music, like a weird music in the background, like somebody playing that, like in like the Middle East, that horn where he's playing the cobra's coming out of the bag. You can hear that. What the fuck is that? that when I start hearing in a fucking spirit box playing like a full song almost, it's happened to me a few times, and I know, James, you've heard it. And they must do like music because they play it back to me. And I've played music before, and they like it. Music has nothing to do with being good or bad. It matters what you say in the song or whatever. But if you just play regular music with no like real lyrics and just a background sound, they like it. That's weird to me, because even if you think about it, angels and demons, they've seen what we've been doing over time. They must enjoy stuff we do. They have to, because they know what we're doing. They must get some kind of enjoyment watching us, because it would be very boring if they didn't. I'm not saying I'm a demon or angel, but they must enjoy some of the stuff we do. They're the ones that showed us how to do certain things. Azazel helped teach men about weapons and war. And there's a couple other ones that I forget their names. They taught them about religion and science and showed them stuff they weren't supposed to. That's why they got in trouble. Then they fell in love with men. But what makes me thing I want to talk about is what the whole we need to talk about the net. We'll do a show on the Mephim. I don't want to bring that up. If they're angels, why would you fall in love with the men of women? I know they were beautiful, but they were immortal. Like, why would they even care about men and women? That's the weird one that we never have ever talked about, Jay. Maybe we'll do that on a show. That we'll leave that for another show. But that's the one that kind of baffles me. Why would they care about men women? Sorry. But that's a thing we need to talk about. We never really ever talked about, because that's kind of weird that they would like the men, the women of men. Why would they even mate with us? Because they're pretty much perfect. Where we're not. We've messed up so many times. Maybe they see pity in us that God doesn't. Or the devil doesn't. I'm just saying, my opinion. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe that what we're dealing with is you have what we think we're talking to ghosts. They're really angels, and maybe the bad things that happen are demons. Maybe that's both. Kind of like the angel and demon. I'm just, Maybe that's what we're talking about, because there's stuff I've talked to. I know it's not evil, not at all. I know James has. I've talked to things that and then they never bother anybody again. I've had people say they have stuff in their house and they'll talk to it and it doesn't bother them. So why, if it was a demon, it would just say, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. And if it was all evil, that wouldn't make any sense, because most of the cases are not evil. They don't even bother them. You would say then maybe all demons aren't really after everybody. Maybe they don't give a fuck. They got enough, whatever. I'm just saying that's what I would say to that, because not everything's evil. That's not true. We wouldn't be doing this. There would be no point if it was just constantly evil. We'd be just doing the same thing over and over. There's stuff that I've got out, not having to do certain things. I've just asked them to leave and they leave. There's some that doesn't understand that they're dead. They don't realize they're really dead, and they're just walking around, and they think we're like me and James talking right now. They think they're real, and they're not. They can't get over the fact that they're gone, and they can't move on. Maybe that some people punish themselves for the bad things they've done when they were in the human world, that instead of going where they're supposed to do, they did so many bad things, they just want to pay for what they did, and they just live an eternity of unhappiness. Maybe I'm just saying another thing that no one ever thinks about. I'm just giving ideas, because James pretty much went through a lot of stuff, so like it's kind of hard. I'm just throwing some stuff out there, guys. Me doing what I'm doing is that I'm trying to help people find out what these things are. Most of the time it's bad, though, what I do. I'm not going to get into what I believe and what James believes. We know. I will tell you this. The best offense for evil is sending evil after them. If you get my drift. James is an evil. You know where that's going to go. Evil is a point of view. I'm not an evil person. I do have a heart sometimes. But I just see things differently. And that's where, with these things, I treat them in a different way. I don't talk crap to them. Sometimes I'll get mad and I'll say some shit, but it's not to disrespect them. I still have respect, because like James says, in the end, they can screw your life up. They can kill you. You got to be careful what you mess around with. You got to know how to use Ouija boards. You got to know what you're doing. You need to not watch Zach Baggins and Ghost Adventures. I'm sorry, but I don't hate the guy. I get it. He has to make a show. A lot of these, and he's not the only one. It just, quit watching some of these shows. If you want to watch it for entertainment, that's cool. Don't get all your information from all those shows, because they're not accurate. Not hardly at all. They should not have museums with haunted stuff so you can get cursed or have something come after you. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. I get it. You got to do a show. You got to make it interesting. I get that. But we're not here to make a show of somebody. I'm not out there trying to help somebody and have somebody put it on TikTok live or YouTube live while I'm sitting there helping. Now, if you're on like an investigation, like in a haunted area, that's a different story. I get it. Or like some kind of monster crypto, like Dogman. I get it. When you're at somebody's house trying to help them and then you're trying to record, you know exactly what you're doing. That's why I wouldn't take a couple people to investigations to people's houses, because they wanted to put it on live so they can get views while these people are in terror and having problems. I still have to deal with the guy in Long Beach. He's finally getting to the point where he doesn't have anything going on. I think he's 74 and he lives by himself, and I think that now he just likes to talk to me. He's a great guy, awesome guy. He likes hearing stuff about me and James. He's really into the paranormal. He's trying to talk to these two spirits that's still left in his house that were murdered. I didn't know this. So he's been trying to get them to go, but they've become friendly with him. Whatever was attacking him's gone. He still has these, but they don't bother him too much. He'll tell them they'll tickle him a little bit, and then he'll say, leave him alone, and he does. and he's working on that part. I got the other part out. The snakes are gone. That's a very interesting case, and I helped him. Now, the lady in Pennsylvania, I don't even want to get into it. That was a big fiasco, and he still gets calls from her. And we had to walk away from a case because she was probably doing it to get famous. She told him that she wanted to do stuff on TV. We tried to help her, and she say all kinds of crazy shit. I'm not going to say her name, but it was a bad case to work on. Lately, I haven't done any cases like in a couple months, except working on this one. I haven't done like an investigation for about 3 or 4 months. It's you guys seen us enough running around the same places. There's a couple new places I want to go, and we will. But you got to realize, like, we have lives and things happen. I have books I wrote. I've just finished a book. We're trying to do movies. We're trying to do other stuff. We're becoming jacks of all trades. Everything we do, we touch, it has to be better than what we started it with. And we're doing a good job of it. I love the paranormal world, but it just got phased out for me and James. It wasn't like we still do it, but if somebody needs our help, we'll help them. It's just not like it was with us. We're not worried about jumping on a show. I'd rather do our radio show like I do now. We're on other platforms now, being on TikTok. That really helped our platform. Now people are seeing us on that part. They know who we are everywhere now in the world. It's kind of crazy. I've met people on TikTok that knew who we were and worked with Gina, the one that passed away years ago. She actually knew her and did a show. And I remember that show, The College or something. She was in one of the shows, but she knew who we were. And it was a lot of people knew who we were. And it's crazy that the guy we helped was talking to this thing with a bunch of people that they found out who we were, and he goes, man, we're not on that level. I can help you. You know, I'm a medium, but they're higher up. They mess with stuff we don't mess with. I'll do any case, guys. You're getting attacked. We'll do any case. Me and James have no problem helping you guys. We'll do any case. If it's legit. If it's not, we see it's bullshit, we're going to call you on it. You get mad, throw a fit. You have a bird that you talk to that I think that, you know, that was I've had some weird shit that people tell me. But if you need our help, we'll help you. I will never charge anybody. I will never ask for money. I will never do that. Now, if it's out of the state, it's a whole different story. We're going to have to get funds to get out there. But I'll go out of Europe. I'll go to any haunted places in this fucking world, dude. I don't care. So will he. Trust me, we will. I would love Skinwalker Ranch. That would be the one I would love to do. I would love to do Dracula's Castle. Unfortunately, James been there. And I would love to do the place in, London? That where they did all the tortures of King James and all that. They're supposed to be very haunted out there too. Winbury or something. I want to go to that place. Everywhere. I'll go anywhere. Amityville. I'll stay the night there. We and James will stay the night, each side of the house, and we can stay there and we'll see how evil. I'll go to sleep right where they had the pigs at, where he said the dog was there, right where it's supposed to. Where James will go to sleep right where that little demon kid's out there and slap the shit out of him. We'll go in there. It don't matter. I'll go to that chair where there's like this haunted farm where there was murder and this guy got shot and you sit in a chair, the house gets bad. I'll sit right in the fucking chair and he ain't gonna do nothing. And I'll tell you, he won't. That's me. That's how we are. Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch is gonna be a little different because we don't know what the hell's over there. There's all kinds of weird shit over there. Aliens and ghosts and skinwalkers, and skinwalkers are no joke. There's different kind of skinwalkers. And this thing, when somebody told me, well, I watched Ghost Adventures, I know how to deal with skinwalkers, I just laughed my ass off. Good luck on that. Good luck on that shit. James will tell you about skinwalkers. They're no joke. That's the biggest. That's why the TV shows, go watch them for entertainment. Don't take them serious. But that being said, guys, we've done a long show. It's been over an hour and 20 minutes. I want to throw it over to James real quick to see what his response, and then we could probably get done in a couple minutes.
I actually have answers for both of your questions. I'll try to do it really quick. Um, as far as why the angels would be attracted to the women, they like beauty. Remember the description of heaven: gold, jewels, emeralds, all that stuff. They appreciate beauty, and women are beautiful. They're made to be beautiful. So that would be the initial attraction. Now, the carnality of it, I think, is once they took on human form, they felt lust for the first time. Because as a spiritual being, you don't have that. You don't have the equipment. You know what I mean? The bait and tackle. You ain't got it. So you're not. It's not the same level. But remember, when you were a teenager, what that felt like. Your hormones are going crazy. You're feeling lust really for the first time, and you're just like, oh, women, women. You know, there's a reason why it wasn't just women that they mated with. It was women, it was men, it was animals, it was anything that they could mate with, they mated with, right? I think that's because they were kind of driven mad with lust because they're not physical beings, they're spiritual beings. So when they take on that body for the first time and they feel that lust for the first time, it's overpowering. Like I said, you remember how it was to be a teenager when you first discovered it, man. You were doing all kinds of crazy shit that we can't talk about on the radio. Okay? That's the answer to that one. The next one that I have for you is kind of interesting. What if the reason why some people are still here instead of moving on to heaven or hell? That's the next part I want to talk about. I think that the Bible does say once you die, you go to heaven or hell, right? But remember, you have free will, and God does not mess with your free will. So you having free will means that you have the choice. If you decide you're going to stay here temporarily, you can stay here temporarily. But I think that it lasts only so long because I think it's hard to stay here because naturally you're pulled either to heaven or hell. So I think the longer that you're here, it could be that that's why spirits get malevolent. That's why they get so crazy and cranky and want to hurt people over time, is because they've been here too long. And that pull to go to heaven or that pull to go to hell is so strong on them that it's a form of madness. Their being is not in its natural place, so it's starting to deteriorate. It's starting to go through changes, and that might be why you have the malevolent spirits. It's not. I mean, yes, some of it is that they were an asshole in life, but I think also they start to lose control over time because they're not supposed to be here. You know, I've struggled with that question myself because the Bible says that when you die, you go to heaven or hell, and that we're not supposed to talk to the dead. It doesn't say that we can't. It says that we're not supposed to, right? So not supposed to, they wouldn't have to say you're not supposed to do it if it was impossible for you to do. So those people that say that you can't talk to the dead because they're in heaven or hell, that they're not here so you can't talk to them, that it has to be demons, that's not necessarily true. Because the Bible says you're not supposed to do that. It doesn't say that you can't. And like I said, you don't put a rule up if it's impossible to do. Like there's no law against jumping off a cliff, turning into a spaceship, flying around the world 3 times, and then shitting balloons, right? There's no law against that. Why? Because it's fucking impossible. You can't do it, right? If something's impossible, you don't have to make a law about it. So God's not going to make a rule that says you can't do this or you're not supposed to do this if it's impossible for you to do. So that means that there has to be some way to be able to communicate. Now, do I think you're communicating with people in heaven or communicating directly with people in hell? Probably not. Don't know for sure, but probably not. Probably what you're communicating with is the souls that are left here that are in transit, right? They're in the process of going to heaven or hell. And it's not like a purgatory where there's a waiting room where you're waiting around to do it. It's literally they haven't moved forward yet. That's why when you cross people over, a lot of times you'll tell them to go into the light because that signifies moving towards your destination, wherever you're supposed to be going. You're supposed to move on, right? That's what we say a lot too. It's time for you to move on. because you're not supposed to stay. So maybe staying has some kind of effect to where it's hard to stay. And it messes them up over time, and they just go absolutely apeshit crazy. That's just a theory. I'm not saying that's fact. I don't have any evidence to back that up. It's just from my pondering of it, trying to reconcile my experience with the knowledge, that's a good theory, I think. That could be a reason why. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this puppy up because we've been going for quite a while. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching the show. And as always, it's up to you guys to make up your own mind. We'll tell you what we think, and we always do. We're definitely not shy about it. And then you make your decision for yourself because, like I said, you got free will. That means you got the free will to make up your own damn mind about things. And if God ain't going to mess with your free will, then neither am I. Right? If God ain't going to mess with it, I'm not going to mess with it. So with that being said, love you guys, appreciate you guys, and we will catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
Good night, Misfits.
In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present. Tune in every Monday at 10 o'clock for Dark Sun Rising on the Para-X Radio Network.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X.